Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video, and this time we do have some more Avatar Studios kind of insider information, rumors from Avatar news. So there was a post from last night and there is a post today that he just released. So let's get into this. It's basically, to sum up both of them together, it seems to be in this initial plan, kind of, quote unquote, confirming more of what project is taking up what slot on the slate for 2025, 2026, and 2027, given that, again, the plan is to have a animated movie and an animated series release in each of those years. So 6 projects at least in the first 3 years of Avatar Studios, and we're beginning to find out more about what it is. So the first one he put out from last night, Avatar Studios is developing an animated preschool show. Now, again, there's not actually that much detail on this in terms of what his scoop on this actually is. It's just that we can reveal Avatar Studios is developing an animated series aimed at the preschool demographic. Currently, this should be what fills in the 2026 show slot in the plan. And again, he just emphasizes in both of these posts that because we're talking about, one, the idea that even the confirmed movie is still quite a bit away, and then we're talking about projects that are a further couple of years away, this stuff still can change. So don't lock this in place. Treat this more as being an idea, or at least right now, he has heard word that this seems to be the plan. It's an idea. So that's the kind of way to always view this kind of rumored information. So anyway, he doesn't have any word on what era this is, if it'll even be a canon show. So no information apart from just they're doing a show aiming at a different demographic. Similarly, it's just speculation on where it will appear. Obviously, if you assume it's coming on Paramount Plus, you assume they'll use it on the Nickelodeon channels as well. And again, it's referencing the idea that if you've listened to some of those interviews with Mike and Brian, you know that the plan for Avatar Studios is big, broad, and ambitious. And part of that does also include trying to hit different audiences. And to do that, they are going to be doing some projects that are different than your typical thing that we've seen from Avatar so far. So most of the projects we've heard about so far are very much in your Avatar fans' wheelhouse. This is one where it doesn't seem to be directly for hardcore Avatar fans, but hopefully there's stuff in it that will make fans actually want to check this one out as well, and not just for the demographic it's aimed at. So straight away, thoughts on a preschool show. Obviously it's a bit getting what seems to be some level of confirmation that this is actually something that's happening is nice to know, because it seems like this feels like it opens the door a little bit, that if they're willing to do more than just the sort of standard age range for Avatar, Korra, what the new stuff we expect it to do. Now they're willing to go younger to bring in younger fans to Avatar. What's to say they can't have another project that leans slightly older? I don't think we're getting Avatar like R-rated and stuff like that. Super, super dark stuff. But what if they lean it a little bit more, kind of like where Korra kind of felt like it got to in certain sections? Or at the very least, what the novels do, and it's more kind of full YA, where it doesn't seem to have the sort of Nickelodeon kind of stuff kind of pulling it back. If they aim it at the right people, can they do a little bit more? You sort of wonder, does this open the pathway to do kind of more stuff on the other side of things? But I wouldn't freak out about the whole idea of a preschool show. For one, because the whole point of Avatar Studios is to have multiple projects. This is one of 6 things in the pipeline, but realistically, it's more like one in 10 plus things in the pipeline if you include the projects that seem to be being thrown around as being post 2027 projects, and the Kyoshi movie, Korra movie, all these sort of things that they seem to have put some time into and probably will happen eventually. The idea that there's going to be one thing that aims at a different audience, that shouldn't really be a problem. The reason Avatar Studios is getting this kind of chance to do all of these projects, I'm guessing from a business point of view, includes some level of letting them build this into a proper franchise. So they can increase the merchandising opportunities, they're aiming it at a bigger audience, and they can bring more people in. Another way to look at this is just look at the video games that we have for Avatar. So Avatar Generations, the mobile game, just came out. Okay, for a lot of people, the mobile game maybe isn't for them. But there are other Avatar video games in development. Now, admittedly, we're at a point where we haven't heard much about the other ones. But the idea is that is Avatar Studios going forward. They're doing a lot of different kind of style of things. In nearly every kind of avenue that they can. So this very much might not be for you at the end of the day. But you still have the, YA Aang and Co. movie, Zuko movie potentially, Earth Avatar after Korra show, and many, many other things that will be directly aimed at more typical Avatar fans. So that's why I wouldn't in any way feel like frustrated at them doing something like this, especially when right now we don't know anything about what way they're going to approach doing this. So let's get into that a little bit before we move on to the other piece of news. What are they going to do with this? Well, what can they do with this? Do they just make it kind of more chibi short style things where it is mostly the characters that we know, but because it's in such a wild format, it's not canon and they can do whatever they want. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is that they can have it be an actual canon show, but it's got its own cast. It can be set in whatever era it needs to be. It's got its own kind of demographic appropriate cast that they can just develop in that show. And they can reference stuff from the other stuff if they need to, but for the most part it can remain its own thing. It depends really on what way you want to do it. For instance, on Twitter, when this came out last night, I just put out a quick idea. One of the first things that came to mind was something like this. Brief idea for the Preschool show. Set in a Republic City school, basically during the Korra era, you cover kids from all nations and backgrounds at a time when some of them begin to discover bending abilities. Fun hijinks ensue. Stuff like field trip to Air Temple Island. They go to a pro bending match to see some of the teams and stuff like that. What if, say episode 1 type situation. What if lesson 1 is what is the Avatar? And what if they bring in Korra to directly kind of show them that? That way, what you have is a Korra era show. Korra's maybe not going to be a main character or in the show much, but you can bring her in if you absolutely need to, but the focus would remain on your younger characters, the students attending this school. And because it's Republic City, you can have someone whose origins are Fire Nation, Earth Kingdom. You can have someone who's a new air nomad type situation, new airbender. You can have a lot of these things happen. And that creates a very different style of show. Because all of a sudden, this show wouldn't be about a big villain comes in and the politics of Avatar, what it means to be the Avatar and the whole destiny kind of aspect, the cycle. This is about just kids, normal kids living in this world, going to school, learning about it, and then for the benders, learning what it is to be a bender. Maybe you address a little bit of that kind of at a young age. How do you work that when certain people maybe have the potential to be benders, they don't end up being a bender, but all their friends are? You can cover those kind of more low-key dynamics that you don't often get to see. What was one of the cooler elements of Smoke and Shadow as a comic was that we actually got to see someone develop their bending for the first time in Kiyi in a heated moment. discovered she was a firebender. That was very cool because we hadn't really seen that before. And I kind of like the idea of doing that. And that'd be my approach, is that very much lean away from feeling that you have to just be kind of like the chibi comic did, and I think did quite poorly. Use all the characters that like fans know, but like your audience wouldn't necessarily know if this is meant to be an introductory thing, and instead, you know, give them their own characters with a little bit of a pathway into the other stuff, into the franchise. That to me is the best way to do it, where that concept would have an appeal both to kids and also to hardcore fans as well, wanting to see how they do a lot of this, even if there's not a lot of depth to it. That's what you're looking for kind of out of something like this. So that'd be my idea. But there's so many other kind of things that they theoretically could do. But it's just to highlight that don't look at Preschool and like immediately think that that means nothing can happen. Now, again, it depends on how they approach doing it, how they execute it. But I am assuming Avatar Studios want to maintain a certain level of quality, and they're not going to put out garbage, in my opinion. So, and again, they have a plan. They want to grow the franchise. This is part of doing that. And if you're not happy with the fact that we get like 5 other animated projects, but one of them has to be a show for very young kids, you know, that feels like something you need to deal with and kind of put into perspective. But we'll move on to the other one, and that is this. So, Avatar Studios' 2027 movie will follow the New Earth Avatar after Korra, following this Avatar's 2025 show. So again, this is referencing a lot of his previous news articles where he revealed that in 2025, the series that we're going to be getting is about the Earth Avatar after Korra. In that post, he did mention that Avatar would have a movie, but at the time, he didn't really have a sense for where that movie fit into the overall scope of what was going on. But now, he seems to be able to sort of confirm that, at least right now, that the 2020 movie slot is going to be filled by this new Avatar's film. So that's the kind of like big one here. Again, it is just speculation on his part that because this is an official date, fully official, nothing rumored about this. If that's official, if they follow the same release cadence, that theoretically this would be like Friday, October 8th, 2027. I doubt they're planning to particularly have it hit the same week in a month or anything like that. So I don't know how much I buy into that sort of speculation. Basically, it's just going to hit at some point in 2027, basically. So, the other thing is that, you know, he really emphasizes like stuff like this. This is 2027 we're talking about. We're still in 2023. And we're probably talking later half of this. So we're talking 4.5 years away. We're nowhere near this, but they're behind the scenes planning this to a certain degree. We're getting rumors about very early stuff in the planning. It's likely to change. So don't lock this in your head just yet, but just it's an idea of what is going to happen. This brings up the idea of like what's happening with the series then. Because if it's a series, you expect it to go on for at least a couple of seasons, but so far, the schedule seems to be like one movie, one series a year. What's going on? Because basically, I'll bring this up here. This is sort of what we have at the moment. 2025, we have the Aang movie and the Earth Avatar series. That's fine. We would hope that by the end of this year, this is like all officially fully locked in. We maybe even have titles. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, it makes sense. The Aang movie is fully confirmed. That's coming. The Earth Avatar series, not confirmed yet, but it seems like this is something that is very likely to happen. But it's going to be the start of a new series. So it's going to be like season 1 type thing. Then we go into 2026, and this is year 2. So this is where we have our Zuko movie, which again was from a couple of months back, seemingly locked in as being the 2026 movie. We don't know particularly what the connection between the Aang movie and the Zuko movie is going to be, but you can see why that is a separate focus, why they're specifically framing it that way. At the moment, it looks like, at the very least, the Preschool series is planned for 2026 as well. But where does that put, say, like season 2 of the Earth Avatar series, if it's getting one? Because, of course, in 2027, the Earth Avatar is getting the movie. This also brings up the idea of, what about this mystery project, which will be the series in 2027? Now, as far as that goes, he says it's a mystery. He's not teasing it. He legitimately, there's just no information on what this is right now. And it's probably slightly too far off into the future to confirm that. And I think this makes sense, that they sort of have a plan for their new Earth Avatar, how they're going to tell the various stages of that story, but potentially a new thing well off in the future in 2027. They don't know what's going on there. He also speculates that the Earth Avatar show will continue in from 2025 into 2026 also. So the question is sort of like, well, the Preschool series is going to be like something very, very different. Is that just like an add-on extra, and sort of 2026 would actually be more like Zuko movie, Earth Avatar season 2, and also the extra Preschool series? Because you would assume that the Preschool series would maybe have a slightly different animation style, and it would be done by a little bit of a different team, different writers, that it wouldn't be like taking the place necessarily of the Earth Avatar series in terms of the same people moving to work on that. So, they have a movie team, potentially a team of people working on the Earth Avatar series, and maybe that movie, and then another team working on what we assume is going to be a very differently kind of run and done show, like the Preschool series. So, it's interesting to speculate about how exactly this is all going to work out. Now, obviously, looking at that kind of lineup, you do sort of worry from the perspective of like, where is the Korra project? Where is the Kyoshi project? This is cool and all, but it's maybe not covering as many eras as you would perhaps think. And this is where clearly it feels like there's a few things that we don't know about the full plan for Avatar Studios, and maybe when they come around to officially confirm a lot of this stuff, they'll be a little clearer kind of about what's going on here. Because, it's a bit weird that, for instance, we maybe aren't allowed to get new content on some of these characters in the comics because they're getting these animated projects. But if their animated project is not coming until like 2028, why can't we have a comic like this year or next year? There's stuff like that kind of feels a little bit kind of confusing. But there's more projects being planned. A lot of this stuff is still flexible and could absolutely change. It does feel like at this point, obviously officially, the Aang movie is the only thing locked in. And then I think there's enough rumors about the Earth Avatar thing that it feels like that is at the point where like this year we'll probably get the confirmation that is going to be a thing also. Because at some point, officially Avatar Studios will have to confirm like, hey, we know you guys are excited for the movies, but you also want to know like what the third series is going to be. So, they have to make that announcement also. So, that's pretty much everything here for these two updates. You might think like, oh wow, wrapping it up already on kind of big Avatar Studios news. But the reality of it is that the headlines are the news. There's like no additional details other than like Preschool show. And basically the concept of Preschool show is more of what the discussion is rather than any specific details. And the same goes for the Earth Avatar thing, where we've had a lot of the discussions about this. And so the movie getting confirmed for like 2 years after the debut, as I'm guessing potentially the kind of finale of their initial arc or something like that, I think makes sense to a certain degree. A lot's going to depend on how popular, how much of a success the new Earth Avatar actually is. But I like the idea that in a new project, they can have stuff like that planned out, that we want to do a show, but we'll do a big movie to hit certain key moments if we need to. And the kind of flexibility that they seem to have now to be able to do that, when in the past, you know, we know little bits and pieces about how theoretically at one point they wanted to do a movie about the search for Zuko's mother, but they couldn't do that. And in a way that led to kind of the comics actually happening in a way. But now they have the full support and can kind of do whatever they want. And again, if part of getting what they want means that they also have to do more, maybe focus on the business side of things, like putting out a preschool show and leaning into that sort of thing, I think that's fine, because I think there is potential in a younger aimed series once they do it right. That you want it to still be written well and still come across very well as being Avatar, and not feel just like Avatar with all the interesting things about Avatar taken away from it. You don't want a dumbed down show. You just want one that is more suited towards kids. And that can open the door to do things that the main series often can't do. Because depending on how many episodes per season you get, sometimes the big shows don't get a chance to breathe, which sometimes they need. There's a lot of interesting avenues to talk about with this. But yeah, this all really highlights the idea that I think anyone kind of talking about this, you have to think of this in the context of what the Avatar Studios kind of vision and project actually is. And so this constantly getting brought up is very, very important, that this is what it's all about. Ambitious, multi-tiered, growing the franchise, new mediums and audiences. So, you know, the idea is that I think we're expecting to see different animation styles used in different things. We'll see different approaches to the preschool show. They might have, you know, shorts and stuff like that. We don't know exactly how this is going to work. Is this a full-on series that will take up a slot, or an extra thing? We really don't know at this point. But that's where I'm going to wrap it up for today. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the potential idea that Avatar Studios will be putting out a preschool show as part of their attempt to broaden the audience of Avatar. And also seeming confirmation that the Earth Avatar movie that we heard about before is going to be the 2027 slot on the list. So there it is again, in case you need to see it again. Meaning that of the initial 6 projects, it seems like there's only one that we don't know anything about. And that should be the really, really interesting one whenever we hear about it. But yeah, that's been the video. Let me know what your thoughts are below. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and bye.